Good morning, America. Um, Today I want to talk to not all of you, just those in America where it's not working for you. I'm talking about the people that are in the bottom third of America. Um, I grew up poor, and I don't struggle like I used to, but it's still a little touch and go at times, and paying my bills and trying to help my daughter, who's definitely in the bottom rung of American life. She has a grandson, 4, and she has a boyfriend who's committed to my grandson probably more than he is to my daughter. The kid holds them together, but all 3 of them are struggling. They live in an America where it's hard to make it. She's working a waitress job and trying to start her business in photography. Her health is not that good. She's struggling with getting a prescription right now that Medicare won't cover. I'm struggling to come up with enough money to help her pay her daycare so she can go to work. She applied for daycare from Social Security and they said she didn't make enough money to qualify, which is some weird ass thing I can't understand. But I see her struggle, and I know there's a lot more Americans out there struggling. I grew up that way in El Paso. Lived in a 600 square foot home with my mom and dad. He was a mechanic, she was a housewife. Back when one person could make um, a living and support a wife. You know, you're going to see in a video coming up that I made um, a proposal there for a minimum wage of 15 bucks an hour. Do you realize that back in the 60s, the minimum wage was like 2.50 an hour or something in that kind of ballpark? But if you extrapolate that forward with inflation, that's 15 bucks an hour. It's not a lot of money. It's very hard to live on that. So I'm going to show you a video that I researched the concept on Perplexity, an AI system. And here's the kind of ideas I want to throw out there. And I know that this doesn't have all the details, but first I want you to get the big picture. Um, if you're in the bottom third of America economically, do you realize you would be better off in Mexico, in Costa Rica, Panama? Not just quality of, you know, income level, but you'd have access, especially in Costa Rica, to good health care that you may not have now. And you would live about 10 years longer than if you stay in America. And that's one route, is you take your ass and go south of the border. Route 2 is that we change the wealth inequality in America. And I have an outline of that in this video too. Now there's a lot more details there. Um, I've got the details. I just don't want to tie you up here for, an hour listening to all of them. But I'm going to make documents available. I've already made some podcast on this. Um, but I'm going to outline in more detail that you've got options. Imagine really moving to Costa Rica if you're poor and your life getting better. Not only would your income be more, your standard of living higher, but the rate of increase for the whole Costa Rica economy is greater than the increase that you're going to see staying in America. In America, you're going to stay poor. Now, you may be the exception that pulls out of it, but most of you are not the exception. Most of us are pretty, we're just normal people doing the best we can. And the best in America just doesn't cut it anymore. It's not a land of opportunity. Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, there's the land of opportunity. But I also outline in this video coming up the basics of how we could get rid of wealth inequality in the U.S. and change what your life could be like, even if you're in the bottom of America right now. It's the old dream. It's the dream I had when I was growing up that was actually real. And I took advantage of that real. But I hate to be a doomsdayer, but life in America is not getting better. We have a buffoon running the country, and I'm not sure the other party's done any better in changing life for the people in the bottom. This isn't political. Really, it isn't. Anyway, this is the Ancient Texan. Listen to this, and then I'll make a brief comment at the end of it, and then I'll talk about it more in other videos. But today I'm just talking to the bottom third mostly. You other two-thirds, the part about wealth inequality and changing it in America, that's meant for you. Anyway, be back at you. This is the Ancient Texan.
All right, welcome. Today we're going to tackle a really provocative idea, one that kind of flips the script on the American dream. We're digging into some pretty surprising data based on work from Robert R. Ottle that asks a tough question. So let's just put it right out there. Could you actually have a better life in Mexico? Now, I know what that sounds like, but let's just set our assumptions aside for a minute and really look at what the numbers are telling us. For a whole lot of Americans, is the dream of a better life actually somewhere else? Okay, so this is it. This is the quote that got this whole conversation started. The claim is that for Americans in the bottom quarter of income earners, life might not just be a little better, but significantly better in countries like Mexico. So let's find out why anyone would say that. To really get this argument, we have to look at three absolutely crucial things: how much you can earn, your access to healthcare, and maybe the most important one of all, how long you're expected to live. We're not talking about a vacation here. We're talking about the fundamental building blocks of a good life. You know, what's really interesting here is it's not just about what you're making today. It's about your prospects for tomorrow. For the last 10 years or so, the average person in Mexico has actually seen their income grow faster than the lowest earning Americans. That suggests the entire financial trajectory, your shot at a better future, could actually be pointing up more sharply south of the border. Now let's switch gears to healthcare and look at Costa Rica. So the US has some of the most advanced medicine in the world, no doubt. But for low-income Americans, getting access to it is a huge barrier. Costa Rica, on the other hand, has a system that provides near universal coverage. What that means in the real world is that the average person there has a much better guarantee of getting care when they need it. And as you're about to see, that has a huge impact. Okay, this is a big one. We're looking at something called purchasing power parity, or PPP. It's a fancy way of asking a simple question. What can your money actually buy? It's not about the number on your paycheck. It's about your real-world standard of living. And when you look at it that way, the average person in Panama has an income that lets them buy a lot more than the bottom quarter of Americans. That's a huge tangible difference. So, we've talked about future prospects and different systems. Now, let's get into the hard data. Let's put these numbers side by side and see what the story really is. This chart just makes it so clear, doesn't it? You can see Costa Rica is pretty much neck and neck with the US bottom quartile. But then you look at Panama. Wow, it's not even in the same ballpark. The average person there just has more economic firepower. This really visualizes that gap in living standards we were just talking about. Honestly, this might be the most staggering slide of them all. Just look at these numbers. Life expectancy for the poorest quarter of Americans is stuck in the low to mid 70s. Meanwhile, the average person in Mexico, Costa Rica, and Panama lives longer, and in Costa Rica and Panama, it's by a lot. This is such a stark reminder of how closely our health is tied to our economic reality. Let's just pause on that for a second. 9 years. That is the potential difference in your lifespan. 9 more birthdays, 9 more holidays, 9 more years of your life. That's not just a statistic. That is a profoundly different life outcome. So, okay, the data is pretty compelling if you're thinking about this from an individual perspective. But it begs the question, right? Does it really have to be this way? Is the only solution to just pack up and leave to find a better life? Or is there another path? And that brings us to a totally different way of looking at this. A second source we looked at lays out a really bold set of ideas. The goal here isn't to help people leave, but to fundamentally change the system, to improve things for those exact same people right here in the US. And the centerpiece of this whole plan is something they're calling the Living Standards Adjustment Program. It's a pretty comprehensive approach that tries to hit the problem from a bunch of different angles all at once. So here's how it breaks down. It's basically a 5-step plan. First, you tackle that slow income growth with new skills by creating vocational training centers all over the country. Second, you give an immediate boost with higher wages through a $15 federal minimum wage. Third, and this is a really big idea, you create more take-home pay with something called a negative income tax, which is basically a way to get more cash in the pockets of low-wage workers, pushing their effective pay up toward $25 an hour. Fourth, you help people build wealth through homeownership by having the government match half of their down payment. And finally, to address those healthcare gaps we saw, you create health security with tax credits, so a big medical bill doesn't wipe you out. Of course, the immediate question is, how do you pay for all of this? Well, the proposal outlines a funding plan, new mandatory minimum tax rates for the highest earners in the country. It's a tiered system, so the rate goes up for people earning over $1 million, then $10 million, and then $100 million. So when you put it all together, we're left at a kind of fork in the road. The sources we've looked at present 2 completely different paths to achieving a better life. And that's really what this all boils down to, isn't it? It's a fundamental choice. One option is personal, it's individual. You change your life by changing your location. The other option is collective. You work together to change the system you're already in. Both are aiming for the same thing, a better life, but they couldn't be more different in how they get there. And that leaves us with this final question to think about. What really defines a better life? Is it finding your own prosperity, even if it's in another country? Or is it about creating opportunity for everyone right here at home? It's a huge question, and there are no easy answers. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Okay, you've watched that video. I realize the plan to pay for changing the wealth inequality in this country um, requires more detail, and there are more details. That's enough for now. For instance, the income, you have to include capital gains and their income and all interest that they pay when you figure out the interest rate. Now, will the rich elite let us do this? Probably not. But if the 1/3 at the bottom was really united, that could be a hell of a voting bloc. There's going to be a few people like me that are kind of above the 1/3. We're probably above the 1/2. But we've struggled on our journey to get here, and we know how hard it is. And we're not the ones stopping um, changing the rules of the game. Surprisingly, it's the bottom one third generally votes for people that keeps increasing the taxes on the poor and cutting the taxes on the rich. So I'm here to try to help convince you that it's not in your own interest to keep doing that and to sympathize with you on how hard it is right now. And I want to give you some options. Moving south of the border is one of them. Working together in a united front to change wealth inequality in this country. And it's not hard to put together a plan. I've got a plan. What's hard is getting people united and working together to change the country that we live in and make it care about everyone. Anyway, this is the Ancient Texan. Hoping you come back and we can talk about this some more. Namaste.